This is how this Seattle comedy club is ruining comedy.
4 different comedians had their scheduled appearances canceled, all by the same Seattle comedy club.
Florentine says his agent got an email that he and 3 other jokesters had their dates canceled.
In today's enlightened society, it would appear that most people who are avid viewers of comedy understand that some comedians make jokes that they themselves may not always like. In fact, a lot of comedians nowadays who talk about cancel culture and how it's ruining comedy are met with a fair amount of criticism saying that nobody is really being canceled and that the whole thing is just an overblown farce. However, there was recently a comedy club that barred a few headliner comedians from performing at their comedy club because their material was deemed unacceptable for their community values. If you'd like to hear more about the story of comedians losing work in a progressive city over their jokes, then you've come to the right place. I will be discussing the situation and how it all went down in today's video, so let's hop right into it and get down to the nitty-gritty details. Earlier this month, there was a comedy club in Seattle, Washington called the Capitol Hill Comedy Bar that was scheduled to have shows headlined by comedians Dave Smith, Jim Florentine, Louis J. Gomez, and Kurt Metzger. Then just around 1 week later, they were told by the comedy club booker, Jess Anderson, that they were no longer scheduled to perform at the show, and the reason given is particularly rich. They were told that they did not align with the neighborhood's progressive values, so they were no longer permitted to perform at the venues because, as you all know, nothing screams progressive like not allowing for the free expression of alternate ideas. The 4 comedians all share the same agent, so he would forward them all the official letter that declared their barring from the comedy club. I will show it on screen so you can read a little bit of it for yourself, but it is exactly the type of corporate crappy response you would expect to hear from a pandering company trying to please everybody. This type of decision is an absolute insult to stand-up comedy and fine arts as a whole. They say things like, "We truly value the art of comedy and the diverse perspectives it brings to our lives." Obviously, you don't, because if you did, you'd allow the comedians to perform at your venue despite the fact that not every person is going to like everything they say or find every single thing funny. Of course, the people who buy tickets will probably enjoy themselves, but of course, not everyone can be happy at all times. On a side note, I'd hope there is a good chance that you would like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications if you're finding value in the content you're watching. I appreciate you guys watching the video. Anyway, if the comedy club owner and booker really valued the diverse perspectives that comedy brings, they would have actually told the people railing against the comedians to kick rocks and just not come to the show and pay for tickets if they had a problem with the performer, but they didn't do that. This club also has a Dungeons and Drag Queens Pride Month brunch on its calendar and requires performers to use respectful behavior and language. With this logic the club has, if George Carlin was alive today and was performing the material where he lists out every single racial slur and word you can't say on TV, and he wanted to come to this club, they wouldn't allow George, who is one of the most progressive voices in comedy, to take the stage at their comedy club. If you're wondering why the crowd surrounding this club is like this, I'll give you a little bit of insight as to what city this club is located in. This comedy club is located within the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, otherwise known as CHAZ, which was established in 2020 during the massive waves of political protests and riots that took place. Another fun fact about this area is that the Seattle Police Department no longer answers calls from the Autonomous Zone, which is great! They also proudly celebrate the vibrant voices of the Alphabet community every Monday at the venue with a beers to the front open mic. What I'm getting at is that these people are very, very far left. In fact, these people lean so far left that to them, Jon Stewart is probably right wing. The next question is, what did these 4 comedians do to be considered unsavory for Seattle, Washington? Well, Dave Smith and Louis J. Gomez are 2/3 of the Legion of Skanks, which is a fantastic podcast. While I think that the show is great, to a dude who fantasizes about joining Antifa and has never benched 2 plates in his life, these guys are probably the second coming of Hitler, Mao, and Stalin. Their jokes could definitely be seen as edgy and unsavory when you consider the fact that they've been deplatformed from YouTube before for similar reasons. The Legion of Skanks show has also been name-dropped in articles written by journalists that are highly anti-comedy in nature, such as this infamous article titled "Comedy Has an alt-right problem, which was written by Shane Gillis and Norm Macdonald's favorite spoken bird poetry writer, Seth Simons. There's a good chance if Seth Simons thinks your comedy is problematic, then the Capitol Hill Comedy Bar will also find your comedy problematic and not let you perform at their venue. Next on the list is Jim Florentine, who was barred, and I saw Jim Florentine live in 2019, and for the most part, he was apolitical in his act. Jim has expressed he believes his role in the Comedy Central prank call show titled Crank Yankers could have contributed to his disinvitation from the venue. Jim voiced a character named Special Ed, who is a mentally disabled teenage character in this show. Jim also publicly commented on his barring from the comedy club and said how he's not outwardly and intentionally inflammatory on stage. However, he's also not afraid to talk about topics that are controversial in nature. Basically, he's not a hack when he writes and performs material on stage. I saw him in 2019 and didn't find anything controversial about his act, but something could have changed because the world is definitely not the same place it was 5 years ago. Whether Jim was disinvited for his role in Crank Yankers or just the general nature of his material when on stage was never fully clarified. We as the outsiders are forced to draw our own conclusions. Finally, Kurt Metzger was the fourth and final comedian who dealt with this insane decision. If you don't know who Kurt Metzger is, he's a regular guest on the Joe Rogan Experience, and he also frequents the Jimmy Dore Show as a guest. Jimmy Dore has become one of the most popular podcasts online, and despite being an outspokenly liberal comedian and political commentator, Jimmy has also expressed some views that can be seen as quite anti-establishment and contrary to that of the mainstream media. Kurt's also been a guest on JRE, and everybody knows how the press and mainstream progressives feel about the Joe Rogan Experience. I tried my best to map out exactly why the members of this town in Seattle would have a problem with these four comedians, but that does not mean I agree with the decision in the slightest. If these people truly thought these comedians were too inflammatory for this comedy club, they should not have booked them in the first place. If these comedians were truly that much of an issue in the area, then I feel like when they went to do their weekends there, then people would have just not bought tickets and the club would have lost money and not booked them again. That happens sometimes in the business. If I was a betting man like Artie Lang, I feel like all these comedians would have sold plenty of tickets and done fine, and they and the club would have made a profit. But instead, they decide to rescind a comedian's weekend and take food off the table for them because a couple of people are concerned about the comedian not following their politically motivated and ever-changing moral compass. If you find the subject matter of a comedian's act problematic, then don't buy tickets to see them. Plain and simple. If you instead try to make it the club's problem and try to get their weekend canceled, then grow the fuck up and get over yourself. Luckily in America, at least, this is a very rare occurrence and most comedy clubs don't do stupid shit like this. While I am frustrated on behalf of the world of comedy, there's nothing you or I, the listener, can do about this besides express our opinions and make it abundantly clear that this is a load of crap. I think a lot of times when we hear comedians complain about cancel culture that they're being dramatic and overblowing a relatively small issue. However, in this situation, it's hard for me to pretend that it doesn't exist, at least to some tiny degree, given the nature of this story. I guess we as comedy fans should be thankful that it's a relatively tiny issue, and we can be hopeful that it doesn't grow any bigger than this. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something. All in all, this was how this Seattle comedy club is ruining comedy. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the video all the way to the end. I appreciate it. If you want to help the channel out, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those post notifications down below, because that's a free way to support the channel, and you're helping my community grow brick by brick, one subscriber at a time. I'd like to hit 100,000 subs this year. I think we can do it. So please help me out by subscribing down below. And if you want to support me further, you can check out my Patreon page down below. I just posted a video recently where I talk about how I make my videos. You also get to see every video early, and you get shout outs every video as well. Real quick, shout out to all my patrons. We got Thomas Gill, Jay Murray, Crossblocker, Ethan, Karsten Breivik, Eduardo Ramos, Darren Lester, Jack Morgan, and newly, Olga B. Thank you guys so much for supporting me on the Patreon. I really appreciate that. But yeah, guys, hope you have a great day. Take care of yourselves, your friends, your family, and your loved ones. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.